Hey everybody, we're back again with another video on sales engineering. This time we're going to be talking about the importance of pre-call planning. Pre-call planning is very, very important actually to be successful. I would say in majority of any type of meeting that you're going to have, but especially in sales engineering or technical sales role, because again, you're trying to understand the technical aspect as well as the sales aspect. So again, what is pre-call planning? So pre-call planning is what you have set out or the information that you have received or looked up yourself that's going to allow you to have a smooth transition through that call. So that's the research that you've already done as far as, depending on what it is, trying to accomplish what you're trying to find out and your goals and objectives so that you have some type of outline to make sure that call is going to flow correctly. So why is it important? So again, it's very important, as I said in the previous video on taking notes. You want to always have an agenda set ahead of time so that the customer knows what you're trying to accomplish as well as you know what you're trying to accomplish. So it's going to be something that's clear. It's going to have objectives so everybody knows, all right, we get into this call, we're going to do this, 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 and this. There's no confusion there, and you can also flow through that conversation much smoother. Another reason why it's important is the clear agenda. Those objectives or goals that you're trying to achieve are very important as for that, for that particular meeting. So you know exactly what you're going to be trying to figure out, exactly what you're trying to understand, and so does the customer. It also shows if you have already done your due diligence, then you'll know exactly what it is that you're trying to get out of that call, and so does the customer as far as what information they need to be able to, provide to you so that you can move forward in a better manner. Another good reason to make sure that you have a pre-call plan is because once you do get into that conversation, it's actually going to be a much smoother flow. I don't know if you've ever had a phone call where somebody's called you and they're just kind of, bouncing around. You ever watched the interview or anything like that? Even if you're just doing a job interview, if you're just getting questions asked randomly, there's no real flow and everybody's left kind of confused. Another reason is if you're, while you're doing that, to not only have a smooth transition through that call, it's going to help you to stay on time. So you're not now going back and forth and trying to figure out, let's not start with talking about an address and then next thing you know, you're talking about something really technical. Then another time you're talking about customer service and another time you're talking about this. Pre-call plan will allow you to have that plan or that outline or that structure to that call so that you can go through smooth and build upon whatever you started. And that will allow you to stay on time throughout that call and not feel, pressured because you're not getting the answers that you need to, or that you're not lost at what you need to get. Another reason why you want to have a pre-call plan is because it proves that you are prepared. So again, you're not going into this call and you're just kind of fumbling around, asking random questions. You're not saying, let's say that, again, let's go back to the pizza. You're not asking about the dough, and then you're talking about the meat, and then you go back to, wait a second, what kind of dough did you want? Did you want cauliflower? Or again, with you not being prepared, you may be so fumbling around and not know what goals you're trying to achieve that you might actually go back and ask about what kind of dough again, or the same kind of sauce, and then you're having to backtrack. So then now you look unprepared, and you are actually unprepared, and you're kind of lost in that conversation. So even with this video, if you don't have an outline or some kind of plan going into it, then you're just kind of rambling or asking questions in the dark. And I've sat in on calls in the past where I've listened to people shadow them and they didn't really have a plan. So they're just kind of stabbing in the dark. You see why it's important to have that pre-call plan, especially if you have a goal that you're trying to achieve. You need to make sure that you have that structure so it can be a smooth flow through that conversation. So what happens if you don't have a pre-call plan? Like I said, you end up bouncing around in that conversation because you don't really know where you are. You don't know what information you're trying to gain. You don't really know what they're dealing with. And imagine just going into a job interview and you didn't do any research, any preparation. Now, once they're asking you questions, you're just kind of, shooting in the dark, trying to figure things out. You're fumbling. It's not as smooth. It's not as confident. There's no real flow to it, and it takes away from the interview and the presence of yourself in that conversation. Another thing is you don't want to ask the same questions over and over again. So if you have a plan, and we talked about a pain funnel in the last video, if you know that there's a surface level thing up here and you think about an iceberg, there's all this other kind of information down below that you can't necessarily see. You don't want to start in the middle. You want to start somewhere at the top so you can get a general, broad view of this. Then you can kind of trickle down to what's the root of the issue that you're trying to solve. Even I don't know, you're talking to your girlfriend, your husband, whoever it is. You don't want to just start guessing at what it is that they may be complaining about. You want to start high level and then kind of dig your way down to understand better. Not just stabbing in the dark and you're kind of all over the place. And then you're asking the same question over and over again. They feel like they keep repeating the same thing over and over again. And that conversation gets pretty frustrating. And you could potentially lose the customer or give the wrong solution. Or again, it's just not a good look. It comes off very unorganized and there's no flow to it. Another reason why you don't want to not have a pre-call plan done is because you could miss important information. So again, if you have prepared before that call, you have your outline set up, you got, the structure. For instance, I use confirming the information that I've already received, the research that I've done, all that, and I make sure I confirm that during the beginning of the call. I also make sure that the customer knows what the agenda is, and we explain all of that out, and then we ask, what they need to achieve also so that those goals can be input. It's disclosed up front. This is how the conversation is going to go. You'll have your opportunity to, exchange that information. I have my opportunity, and then we move through that conversation, and it's a easy flow. So you don't want to miss any important information because you're not prepared. And after, I've done the confirming the information that I have received, the research that I've done to know the basic stuff just to do the job, then it's like, okay, so there's some generic things that I need to understand high level from you so that you can explain for me to be able to dig a little bit deeper. But again, that's part of that pre-call plan. And then, going back to the 9 block and everything like that. But that's also a part of the plan, using that 9 block to be able to understand further information. And that information being, environment, what the situation is, what their pain points are currently, what they're trying to achieve. And at that point, I'm just being quiet and I'm listening. But again, that's a part of my plan going into that conversation. So, I have information on pre-call planning, also why it's important, got training on it, stuff like that. So again, if you think that pre-call planning is very important, no matter if you're in technical sales, regular sales, a manager going into a meeting, whatever the case may be, pre-meeting planning, all of that's important because you want to know and be organized when you're going into meeting with other people to be able to interact. So just make sure that you have everything outlined sitting in front of you. It turns into a much smoother transition. So if you agree with that, hit the like button for me, subscribe. See you on the next video.